Well, since we're all here, we'll just go ahead and get started. Talofa lava, everyone. Thank you for coming today. This is our very first session of Film Fale. It is under the Utah Pacific Island Film Series, which I'm the director of. I'm Lauren To'omala, and I'm so glad to have you all here today. And I know many more will be joining us later on. First and foremost, I want to pay respects to the original stewards of this land that I'm on. I'm coming from West Valley City, Utah, which is unceded Eastern Shoshone and Goshute land. And as uninvited guests, we should always do our best to research the Indigenous organizations and initiatives around us and make those necessary contributions to further their missions and help them achieve their goals. Today, we are here with a very incredible lineup of Pasifika Women in Film. We have Amelia Leafaitulagi, Jean Melesaine, Ursula and Siataga, and Sima Urale. And basically, what we're here to do today is just it's talk. I had a moderator panelist kind of format, but uh, that's for other people. That's for other things. We're here to build community and to talk to one another. And so we'll just if you have a question and you want to ask it, go ahead and utilize the raise hand option, just so we make sure everyone is heard and that their questions are answered. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can also use the chat and we'll moderate that as well. But I would like to kick things off and just ask our esteemed guests if they would introduce themselves to everyone here. And we'll start with Jean since she was here first.
Hey everybody, my name is James Melesangi. I am here as an uninvited guest on the Lonely Choteno land, um, and I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. I was born in Eastside San Jose, raised in Frisco, and here in Oakland. So I'm like such a Bay Area person. Um, yeah, and I am a photographer going into film. I've been doing a lot of documentary work, and I think Sima actually inspired me to kind of go deeper into film. So it's so cool to be in this club with arms and everybody. So that's me. So I guess that's me like kicking it off to Sima. Oh, Sima, are you on mute?
Oh, yes. Being very quiet. Kia ora koutou katoa from Aotearoa. We love Aotearoa. We love the tangata whenua here. So, even my mum, she learns Māori. She's quite good at it. She's blooming fluent at it, and I'm so jealous. So, I think all of us have learned some Māori, all of us kids. Okay, love you guys. Yeah, okay, bye. I'm doing a Zoom meeting. Yeah, talofa lava. I'm from Whangamalo, born in Samoa, Savai'i. Whangamalo, Whalealupu is my other village, Matawai in Savai'i. So we came over to Aotearoa when I was 6 years old, and couldn't actually speak English, of course, back then. But now I can hardly speak Samoan, so, bit of a weird thing there. But absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for the initial email. I was like, who's this? Oh my gosh. So I just love it that people have been making films that I've never heard of. Suddenly out of the blue, I get this email. Absolutely amazing. So proud of what you guys are up to. It's like amazing. So anyway, I'm a bit of a naughty filmmaker, always have been. I love just doing my own shit. And my whole family do their own thing too. And you might have noticed my mum's also an artist. Thank you so much for having me here. And I'm actually more excited about hearing all about you guys and what you guys are up to.
Alms, do you want to go next?
Lava, ko Amelia Leafaitulagi. I just wanted to say thank you so much for um, this Talanoa, Lauren, and Jean, and for organizing it. And I'm I'm just kind of like just I'm honored. Sima, I'm a big um, I you know we didn't as brown girls, brown folks here in on Turtle Island, here on Tongva we did not have someone like you to look up to, you know, to see ourselves. So it's such an honor to have you join this Talanoa with each of you, and um, I am here for a funeral for the my like we have a lot of like different parts. Women play a lot of roles in our lives. So I have my mom, and then I have another mom, Makaleta Fili Morhala Dayone. She passed away. So this is her on this t-shirt. And so to be here at Papa Dayone, Maya and Beauty's house, here on Tongva land, on the ancestral lands of the Tongva. I am a storyteller, and through film and photography, and I guess I, I would say that I've learned. I was a student of my grandparents, of the matriarchs in my life, my grandmother Anevai Moana and Sariloa, and my great grandmother Melesaine, and my dear dad that has also passed away. So I look forward to being um, just talking and laughing with you all today. Thank you.
And then Ursula.
Hi, everybody. I am tuning in from Merced, California. I've been here for a week. I don't know what we call it, grandma sitting. So I'm hanging out with grandma and making sure that she's well fed and healthy, and do whatever she wants before the crew comes back. And so I'm born and raised in San Francisco, California, in the southeast sector, we call it. But for folks that are local from Hunters Point and Sunnydale area, definitely I take a huge pride of being from those spaces. Similar to what Jean was saying earlier, there's sometimes where you feel like you're the only one that in specific spaces, and it's like we might be maybe the first one, or the first one that people know, but we're definitely not the last, because the goal is to kind of pass the torch. And there's times, like even Nani knows, I kind of pass the torch too early, like, which is fine. I'm like, hey, you like, I go do something else. It's been amazing journey. Like I did my bachelor's down at UCLA, and that's where I started to get more of like where my my interests lie, which ended up being within film. So I ended up going to UC Santa Cruz specifically for my master's program, for a specific small graduate program within like film that had to do with documentary and doing like documentaries on social justice and social change. Social change. And so it's been an exciting ride. I think one of my goals that far was just to be able to create materials, because I knew that in the works within many of our colleges, and not many of them, but a good number of college and universities in California started to push for critical Pacific studies. And so when that started happening, my goal was, how can I be helping to support in building resources and materials so that the professors would have more stuff to teach, right? Would have tangible things to also have with them. And then I don't know what happened, but I ended up becoming a professor. So it's kind of funny, right? But I know we got the rest of the time to chat about it. But yeah, my mom's from American Samoa. My dad's from Samoa, and in American Samoa, my mom's villages are Wailoa and Kapkimu, and my dad's village in Samoa is Tanguna Manono, in Apia. And I've been there to the islands one time in my whole entire life for 2 weeks. But, you know, growing up in San Francisco with Samoan parents, oh, you gonna know, you know, you gonna learn Samoan culture, you know, and language and just ways to maneuver through. And so I'm excited to be here. Thank you again for, I'm like, how do people find me? But I'm actually easy to find. So I'm honored to be here, and thank you so much for allowing this space to take place.
Thank you. And again, this is an open forum. I want you all to engage and ask the questions that you would like to have answered. And I will just go first and kick things off and ask our guests today, what films did you guys grow up with? Like, what films spoke to you when you were younger and you thought, that's it, that's what I want to do?
Took me a while to realize what these little people in a box were, because I was constantly trying to grab them. Little dolls, and you know, I couldn't figure out. And yeah, so of course, you know, being an immigrant kid here, and I'm going, why the hell these people in this strange country cannot speak Samoan? So I just thought for 2 years, they're the thickest people in the world, can't speak Samoan, complain to my mum and dad, they're just pretending, they do not, you know, like. So I did not have a very high thing of why these people couldn't speak it and that these little people on TV weren't speaking it. And what I saw back then, black and white TV, what I realized is then seeing, of course, the cowboy films, a lot of, you know, John Wayne films, a lot of black and white, like really old school films on our TVs. And a lot of it looked like, why are these people chasing people that look kind of like us? And they're shooting at them. So we know the cowboy and Indian films. And that was always, you know, so I think even from that time, we even knew as kids, well, I definitely was like, you know, I knew which one to empathize with. It was always the ones that looked like us getting shot and falling off the horses and being raided by the white guys. So that was it. So it was really early noticing, well, basically quite racist shit happening on our TV. And then I think even older, I was realizing, oh my gosh, we don't have many brown faces on our TV. Commercials was pretty much white. Presenters were white. So even Māori, even the indigenous Māori really weren't seen that much. Very few. So, you know, New Zealand is pretty much, was colonized by Britain, as you know. So majority of whites here majority of people are white. So, so I think it's gone through a lot of similar issues like it has in any other country. But yeah, just noticing that, and as growing up, seeing how odd it is not to see, yeah, and being very aware. And I knew I had to be part of that. I was like, not enough brown people. So, you know, in theatre, going into theatre, I knew I was one of the few going into acting. So that's what I did first. And when I was in acting, I was a professional theatre. I was like, okay, I'm now doing theatre professionally, being paid, but the same crowd is coming. They're all white, lovely, nice, but I need to do something more accessible. And that was TV, it was pretty obvious, and film. So that's when I actually looked either to America, Europe, if I had to study film. Luckily, there was one closer in Australia, and that's when I applied for film. And coming back, you know, it was just knowing there was something that there were our stories to be heard and said, and that's why I got into it. Basically, not enough of us on screen, it makes a big difference. Seeing ourselves reflected on the screen makes us feel part of the landscape. You know you're not part of the scene if you're hardly in films, you know. So we know what Indians and the poor Chinese feel like when they're not on our screens. So it's actually part of all of us to diversify those screens and bring our own stories and expose it. People love it, yeah.
Oh, Urs.
No, Gene.
Let's see. I didn't like we had I didn't really grow up like watching TV a lot, like when I was a kid, only because we didn't have cable. And then we had all these like old TVs that like were just there for a shelf. I don't know if you guys grew up in America, and then they had those like huge TVs, and my parents just like brought them and they never worked. But they used to just like play those Samoa videos, you know, like doing the Sasa and all, you know, like Samoa Day and all this stuff like on repeat. So I never really wanted to like kick in, chill in the living room. I was always outside, playing outside. But I think when you start understanding like life, you know, when life is happening to you and you're like, man, like, is this how regular kids like grow up? And then you see it in the film, then you're like, oh damn, like, you know, there's other. I think it was like when I seen Once We're Warriors, even though you know, that film is like super harsh and it's like just one story of a family. It was like the first time I ever seen like Pacific people on the screen. And like the family was going through stuff that I was experiencing in life. And I was like, oh dang, like they don't sound like us, you know, they have an accent and everything, but they're like going through all the same things. And it like spoke to like the westernization of island people, of people who still had a tradition, but things were happening in the country, in their homeland. And so I think it was like once we were warriors when I seen that, and also I grew up on rap videos, so Hype Williams, I don't know, you know, like Hype Williams when he came out with Belly, his, you know, the way that he story told to me was like real beautiful. And Spike Lee, of course, like, yeah, I wasn't like a Do the Right Thing fan, but I was like real into Crooklyn. I was really into films that talked about family. Yeah, and of course Sima, when I seen Sima's film when I was in New Zealand, I was like, who the heck is this? I was like, you know, that like it really like that film just makes me cry. I don't know if y'all seen Sima's film, but like I feel like Sima just dropped like the miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and then like, you know, it was like something that I think all Samoans, if they watched it, or young people, if they watched it, then they could believe that, you know, their storytelling and everything we see happening in life. So those are kind of like the filmmakers I grew up with. Yeah.
Thanks, Gene. Interesting. I grew up with a huge, I don't know, it was like a mix. I think we only had one TV at the house, and it was in the parents' room, and then the only room that had cable. So thank goodness they were always working, because then, you know, after school we all hop in there. But I remember, like, as far as videos, like in films, like we were watching like music videos, right? We were watching like Yo MTV Raps and VH, you know, VH1. And so we were definitely in that space. But I do remember all the VHS tapes my grandma had that she would make sure to calm us down, the kids, she would put it in so we can watch it, so we just sit there and not move. And those were films like basically the musicals, you know, like Sound of Music. She had a list. I don't know where she got it from. She had like a list. I don't know. They were like dubbed, like martial arts films, like a whole list of them. And we would sit there and just watch. So definitely many films around just having just a really solid, good soundtrack really was kind of like this anchor that I was like, okay, any film I watch, they gotta have a good soundtrack. And so the hope was, if I ever made films, the goal was that my soundtrack would just be as, you know, as good. So I think one that started to introduce me to just seeing Pacific Islanders on film. Well, I was at UCLA, and magically they were able to pull a class together and called it the Pacific Islander history class. Taught by Seth Aina. He was like, you know what, I'll do it. Even though he was like he was an advisor for Asian American Studies Center. And he ended up teaching that course. And the film that he put on for us was that 1983 film, Utu. And I sat there and watched Utu, and I was like, there's people that look like us on this film. And it was just like, I don't even know how old I was. I think I was like 22, but I was just amazed to see that. So definitely that helped kind of spark a lot more of like what I didn't see. Because I started going to like film festivals in LA when I was in LA, because a lot of really awesome international film festivals were in LA during that time. And I would just go the Latinx film festivals, the Asian American film festivals, the LA film festival, right? So there's all these film festivals and just meeting the directors. And I was like, just getting the inspiration, but then sitting there and questioning stuff about like, wow, what is it like with our community right now? Are they sharing similar struggles and injustices, right? And then the answer was yes. I was like, we was going through a whole bunch of stuff, but then, you know, like at that time, I was like, our stories weren't being told on this medium, right? And so I was like, wow. So just learning from all the folks of color, like just the history, that many of them became my mentors and advisors. And I was just like, wow. And, you know, them really pushing it, like, we don't have that many, but since you're here, you might as well start some. And let's start at your house. Let's start locally. Let's start with San Francisco. Let's start with your family. And I was like, what? I heard a lot of filmmakers that have been in the work for 25 plus years, they never really get to doing their family, like a family portrait, because it's so difficult. Like, you know, like it's so challenging. But if you want to try that in the first shot, good luck. And I was like, yes, I'm going to need it. But we're able to pull it off. And so, yeah, just a lot of martial arts films back in the day, music videos, and yeah, a lot of musicals. And I still can't sing. So
Thanks, Ursula. For me, we live in a trailer court. I was born in Tonga, and then we moved to Hawaii and then to Provo. Like that's like the mecca of Mormonism, Provo and Orem, Utah. And so my parents didn't allow us to watch TV. So we would try to get TV in when like they were working, you know. And one of the things that had a significant impact on me was so I'd have to watch my younger siblings, and everything in Utah came really late. Like it would hit Cali, and then we would get it like probably a few years later. I don't, you know. But for some reason in Utah, we got the movie Roots, the TV series Roots. I don't know if y'all seen that. You know, maybe I'm dating myself. It's all good, but it was about the history to Alex Haley or to certain people about their travels from Africa and slavery to the South. And so to me, I was like, wow, like, because remember I lived in Provo, Utah, where everyone's not even like in Cali where white people are diverse, but it's like everyone is white and Mormon, you know, and then even if you're brown, and then you're still also that. And so I was like, wow, this is like why I feel this way. Like I was just like maybe 9 or 8, like that had a huge impact on like how wow, I'm like, wow, this is like the history they don't talk about in the school. That's why I'm getting called the N word, or that's why this kind of makes sense. And so I put that together. But I also had an amazing father, and he was born in Tonga but raised in Australia. He was taken to a boarding school, not by choice, at a very young age. And so he like was very strict about our TV, and then would get like VHS tapes and stuff, and we'd watch like Alfred Hitchcock movies, or like like you said, Ursula, and uh, like Sound of Music. But it was like he curated that, you know. But also I feel because there was a lack of folks of color, um, like sports was a big thing for us. So like when we would watch like basketball, we would, like, I would hear the adults talk about like, oh, that black person is so respectful, like they're making it, or they're doing it for us, you know. And so where we didn't have necessarily movies, but like when we saw black folks on TV, like, you know, they're not Pacific Islander, they're not from Oceania, but they were they were the closest thing that spoke to us, and they had that soul, you know, that I feel like that sometimes you lose, like when you assimilate and you're colonized here on Turtle Island, like you lose that, but you have that soul, that joy that no one can take, you know. And you have that on the court, like no matter if someone like got bills, or like someone's gonna take your money, but it's like, man, like, you know, black folks always show that to me as a child, through music, through television, through the little times I would see on TV, or like through it again, I said, through sports.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of us had to use the films created by Black creators and artists, and that was kind of our, we're not there yet, but those are people that look like us. Those are people that, you know, we can aspire to what they're doing as well. I do want to ask, I know that, you know, you guys have, especially now, you're going through a course in a university. How is studying film in an academic setting? I know we talked at the beginning, you guys were talking about it a little, but what's it like? What is that environment like, being one of the few brown faces in the room?
Thank you. I would like to take this and popcorn it to Jean, because one of my kids is calling me, but I'm right here though.
Um, um, so I go to USC. It's like I have like a love and hate relationship with school. Like, one, I'm like 35 and I'm in school with like kids that figured it out when they were in high school, and it took me a long time to get to school, to get to college. Like, it took me a real long time. Like, you know, like I'm not like, I'm one of those kids that like was on literally like skip school, went through truancy court, you know, Kamala's truancy court. Like, they had to find, my dad had to find me on the street, you know, like, so I'm like one of those kids. So I'm a little late to the college, kind of get my head right. It took me a long time to be like, okay, I need to, you know, learn this stuff. But college is a trip. Like, college tripped me out, especially going to USC. It's like, USC is kind of known. They call it the mafia, Hollywood mafia went there. It's like Steven Spielberg and all these folks. And, you know, one thing I learned, like, they have really good education. Their education is on point. The professors are on point. And that some of the students are not on point. There's some students that are on point, but some of them are not on point. And there's a reason why, because that school is like really expensive, you know, like folks who could afford that school, you know, they get to get on point education. And so like one of the things when I, you know, when I go there, I'm like friends with all the workers who like recognize me, and they're like, you know, when I buy my burrito, the lady's like, hey, are you someone? And I'm like, yeah, you know, and like me and her are homegirls, you know. But one of the things on campus is like, I recognize that like people in community have gotten me to be in this space. You know, I'm like on the backs of hella people. Like, I'm on the backs of you know, people at my school. You know, when they see me, they give me, you know, I say what's up to all the cross guards. You know, they know me. Like, but I think school, like, my dad always told me, like, don't let school, you know, like all Polynesian parents, they're always like, you know, if you get a little smart, they're like, don't listen to them in school, you know, like, you know. So I always was like, you know, I was always super conscious about what I was being taught in school, you know. And a lot of my teachers, a lot of the folks I really learned storytelling from was like community members and family members. Stories are everywhere. Like my nieces could tell me a story and I'm like, you should make a short film about that, you know, like, so like education is what you kind of make it, you know, and I never want to like say don't go to school because I want Mena to go to USC and she's on this call. But like it is like it's important to like kind of sharpen your tools because I was taught by community members and we were like super guerrilla style, like you know, like we didn't know, you know, we'll forget like memory cards. We'll be like, where's the memory card? And I'm like, did you charge your battery? You know, it was like hella guerrilla style. And I like love, you know, I love like those are people I could work with. But then when you get to school, you figure out that like you really got to sharpen your tools, and you got to take everything you learn to your advantage because you're there for a reason. And a lot of people who got you to be in that position, you know, it's kind of like you got to bring them with you, like what Ursula was saying. And yeah, it's weird because like first day of school, like dude thought I was there to clean the classroom. And, you know, it's a theater, you know, it's like, and then he asked me if I was on a special scholarship right after I told him that I was waiting for class, you know, and I was like, bruh, I got to pay my own tuition, you know, like, but, you know, it's just like school, you take everything you can and you use it to your advantage to, you know, tell the stories that you're supposed to tell. Like you can't, to me, like I'm in a place where I can't be messing around because like once you figure out your purpose, you can't mess with that. You gotta learn every single thing you need to learn to make sure it happens. And so like I could deal with like, you know, snobby like rich kids, you know, like, you know, not all of them are snobby, but like I could deal with that. I could, you know, I went through hella stuff. I could deal with like all this little, you know, racist folks who think I'm a cleaner at school, you know, I could deal with that. And so like, yeah, school, but like education is, you know, like knowledge, wisdom is everywhere. And you can't like really miss the opportunity from like your elders or your nieces or just like people on this call. Like you can't miss opportunities to learn from them. So I'll just say, you know, you make school what it is, you take everything you need to, and don't let all the bullshit like phase you out. You know, you just stay there, learn what you can, make sure you remember your ancestors, ground yourself there. I saw Joseph's question, and really like you just got to ground yourself in where you're coming from and where your story is coming from. And you know, to me, that's indigenous. That's the protocol. You know, stick with your ancestors and keep it moving. Sima, you, because I read about you, Sima, and I was like, you went through like all the, like you may have been like the first one in your school, like some. So
you know what? I studied and I went to film school. I went to Australia. It's had a great reputation. I actually looked to see whether, you know, two major, if those film schools weren't good enough, I was going to go to America or the one film school in Europe. Really, and back then, there really weren't that many film schools because it was very elitist, only a handful really in all the country and all the world. So film school was so elitist that countries really hardly had any film schools. So, and back then, so I learned the old school film. So the VHS wasn't even invented. So yeah, we learned the old school 60. We filmed on 60mm cameras, had to edit on Steenbecks, old-fashioned edit, which is fantastic. So I had a great grounding in terms of doing everything the old school way. So yeah, we learned how to operate, how to film with those film cameras. It was amazing. Bolex to the 60mm, how to sync sound, old fashioned. So that was basically that's how things were made back then. And so that's the way I learned it. There was no digital editing either. It was all done on the Steenbeck. So it was pretty amazing to have learnt that, and just to think that as Avid and digital editing systems started coming in 5 years later, yeah, it pretty much was just phased out as those software systems started being invented and slowly coming out. So I feel very fortunate to have gone through that old school ways. And yes, I was the only I was the only black brown person there in the whole place. I think the darkest were the next darkest would have been the Italians. So basically, yeah, it was only me, which I absolutely loved. I guess to the empathy, knowing that there was other Europeans there from other countries, I thought, you know, like, yeah, and they come from a long way as well. So, you know, a whole lot of us were from different countries. For some weird reason, I always get on with the Germans. That's what's so weird. Everyone else in my class, they always tend to run away from the Germans. But us Samoans, we don't seem to mind the Germans. And for some reason, I think because they like things being organized, they're bossy like us. But luckily, we know how to laugh. So for some reason, my German friends are very serious, but, you know, luckily, I think we know how to laugh at them. So the relationship seems really good for some weird reason. So I always seem to hit it off with Germans wherever I go. So I survived for 3 years doing that film course, and I'm glad I did it. And I was probably the most experimental student. And that's because I wasn't there. I had already done the professional thing of acting for 2 years of professional theatre and gone through a New Zealand drama school as an actor. So I knew I just needed to explore the things that I want to know. I'm not there to make the perfect film. So I'm like, I'm not here to make the perfect film, I'm learning. So what I wanted to learn was all the skills of sound design, how to put visuals, you know, what I like, visuals, what can you do with this camera, but also lighting. So, you know, because I actually paint as well. So I've always been quite artistic, even as a child. So I draw paintings and I do oils now and then. So I just see film a bit like an extended tools of my brushes. And so I was really ultra experimental, and you know, I would mix up train sounds with aeroplane jets, with a squeaky bed, and someone breathing really heavy, going, and you know, and put it to, I don't know, put it in an ant running across, so it like seemed like the ant was just, how can I raise the anxiety of an ant? So I would, of course, you know, my poor peers, you know, they'd have to put up watching my experimental stuff, or being a part of it. One of the ones I wanted to see was, one of my experiments was to see how much abuse and tension can an audience take from a screen? Because I'm like, oh gosh, how can you do, like, just raw anger and abuse. So I got this poor actor just to, you know, a 14 minutes, just run the camera and just have him swear at camera and just see how that tension felt. And did it work? Well, it didn't, because it just makes everyone feel really tired. But, you know, that was about how much a filmmaker can, you know, how much we have to edit, how much control and power we actually have, actually. That's what it's actually about. In terms of shaping tension, in terms of what emotion we can hit an audience with, it's very powerful. And that's my realization, was the power we have in our hands. And I said to my students once, because now I do go lecture now and then. It depends. I don't like lecturing, but I do love my students. But that we're in a very privileged position. Yeah, we're friggin' poor most of the time, but actually, I can't imagine a more privileged position being a filmmaker. And that's because of the power we have to control and to have a say. I mean, oh my gosh, we've got really big voice boxes. And in some ways that comes with responsibility, maybe, if you even care about responsibility. I mean, we can abuse it, we can propaganda, we can lie with it, and we can tell stories with it. So which way are you going to swing? So it's interesting. I mean, and it seems like whatever we make, what I've learned is that whatever we make and whatever, you know, how objective and subjective we want to try and be is, no, it's actually, that's still an extension of who that filmmaker, what we're saying. So we actually can't really detach ourselves from it. Doesn't matter how much we, that wasn't me, that, no, it is. Because we know film is just a construction. So that's what I learned a lot, was how much power we actually have. And that meant that, yes, we can have a story, but also that knowledge is power too. This, you know, it just, because an elite group had this power and knowledge for so long, kind of frightens everyone to go into it. Oh, it's really, and it was really expensive for that time. That it was about accessibility too, isn't it? About those that can't afford it. And my family wasn't rich, whatever, just went all out. Nah, we're going to fundraise. So, of course, Samoans are amazing. We know exactly how to fundraise. You know, when we want something, you know, you want to do something, oh, next minute, an island family will just get it together. It's like they don't care, you know. They want their kid to do something, they will raise the money, they will do it, they will send their kid over there. And, you know, that was the real Samoan and us coming out. So that was amazing. Yeah.
I think Urs or Oms.
Okay.
Urs.
But I just wanted to say like how important education is, and for each of us, for myself to understand that I am education. I am education when I walk into that classroom, but also that I am educated. Like you're educated before you walk in. That's an institution, I think, as Jean mentioned. And before I forget, I just wanted to say, because like I hear some folks say like you know, like when you go to school or you go into academia or to your job, like you might have the imposter syndrome. I just wanted to know, as I've heard from our black community and our black family, that that's not imposter syndrome. That is capitalism, and that is racism, homophobia, and sexism. So that there's no like what we are, like as Sima said, like we are mana. You know, we are power, and so when we walk into the room, when we walk into a classroom, we're not supposed to be there, right? We're supposed to be in a cell block or somewhere that, you know. So we are educated because we our history is older than that of here of certain people here, because Turtle Island history is pretty long too. But I want to say that I am humbled because I had the opportunity not to start an institution, Lauren, but I started my film work just working and making films, interning, and as you said, Sima, it's learning learning how to use a 16 millimeter camera. So just for somebody that's a 16 millimeter film camera, not digital, um, and not on the phone camera. And I have so much love, for um, uh, like youth in Kenya or in South Africa using their phones to make films. So nothing, I have nothing, no hate about that.
Yeah.
So much respect. However way you're gonna tell the story, but that's how I learned. I can only speak on my and so I learned from making films in Tonga and Samoa, and I learned how to edit. And I just say that because like if you want to take yourself seriously, like in the following of our ancestors, like when you are going to be like a tauta, like thotai, like a fisher person, or um, to learn to lalanga, to weave, like you had to go through those steps. You had to humble yourself, and sometimes the elders would, or in my case, sometimes I think some folks gonna say you get beat down, or you also get love, like to learn how, because that piece of art you're going to represents not only yourself but everyone else. And so I would encourage everyone to, like, if you're going to be a filmmaker, like to go and learn how what type of camera, or like like to watch many films and all that. So I think that's where my education has come from. And then uh, later on to like then living in like New York City, in Harlem. And so a lot of like black folks, a lot of black my dear friends and family there would show me like, oh, like this is how you edit, like this is like, but you have, I feel like what I learned from the education is that I had to remain humble, so that I think, because as filmmakers, like as storytellers, right, Jean or Lauren or Ursula or Sima, you work as a team, so you have to be kind to each other, and you have to be learnable, you have to be humble, because like someone, like I think like other occupations, but also that's what's going to feed the art, and not like art is not separate of us, like as you learn in Western culture, but it's us, we are the art, and we continue to make art. But like how we tauhiva, like our relationships go into that film, and so, but also what you said, Lauren. So I'm currently a student at the Institute of American, sorry, there's so many like letters, Institute of American Indian Arts. And I'm very grateful for that. And so I'm taking my screenwriting as a storyteller, like, to very seriously. And I go to a native indigenous school, where predominantly they're all native. And I actually really love it. I've never been to a school like this in my entire life, where I feel like I am centered, except for the tuition part. But I feel like it's taken me a while to find a school that support the type of person I am. I'm a woman that is a mama, takes care of like my mom, or the community, um, and just encourages me. Like my professor, my mentors are so loving, and I would encourage students too, that if you can, like, to try and research the type of institution that you're going to go to, but also if they're going to pay for it, that's very helpful as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I could chime in. Those are all great questions. Just really quick around just school. So when I applied to UC Santa Cruz, their program, their graduate program was called social documentation, and they probably, during the time I applied, there were probably like 60 applicants that came in. It was connected to community studies department. So shouts out, I see some folks here, banana slugs in the house. And knowing that of the 60, they were only selecting 6 people for this next upcoming cohort, right, for grad school. And so of the 60, and you got selected, and you also know you were the only one that's the only college you applied to, because everybody's like, why are you only applying to one program? You have to apply to all the other programs just in case. Like, what if you don't get in that program? And I said, no, I'm going to get in that program. That's where I'm going to go. That's where I'm going to be. And I've crossed my T's and dot my I's. There's no reason why they would say no. You know what I mean? Like, I think it took me a long time to shift to that mindset, because even before I was in community college applying to a 4-year institution, I'm like, I hope they accept me. I really hope I've done everything. Like now I'm like, nah, nope. Sorry. taxpayer money's going to these public schools. My parents were some of them, so you don't have to let me in, kind of thing. And that's the shift, even that slight shift of a mindset, how far it took me, it took me really far. It took me to grad school. So anyways, being one of the 6, and of course, right, very similar to every one of our stories, many of us were the only ones in our specific cohort, right? But the level of support that I felt like I needed to have within that space, I got, right? So even if I did those things where people go and they go to the colleges and universities, kind of check out their program, go to the info sessions. There's sometimes you could just feel it. You're like, I don't think I'm going to get the support here, but just magically it happened at UC Santa Cruz. So there was definitely a lot of attention, a lot of support, and a lot of connection, right, to UCLA. So I tell people, like, a lot of the work going through my journey started at UCLA, and then the networks I had from there followed me everywhere else I went. Right. It's because of one professor, I would say Bob Nakamura. He's considered the godfather of Asian American media, right, in California. And he's the one who told me in his ethnic communications class, he's like, there's a good number of students in this class. It was called ethnic communications. And everybody had to write a proposal to pitch what their 8-minute film was going to be. And of course, I'm like, I wanted to be about Pacific Islanders, of course, and then I started to think about arrival stories, right? I was like, I haven't seen nobody's arrival story. Maybe I could start with my grandma, And that was the thing. It's like trying to get my grandma to say yes to doing a film about her. And of course, it was automatic no. She was like, what people want to know about me? She was very gangster in her ways. Like, not too many people knew of her. But for me, it was more of like, how can I get grandma to do this beautiful project? It's only 8 minutes long, and it's just telling her story. Right. And that was kind of the biggest thing. How can we get her to tell her story? After a while, I was like, grandma, so it's for my class, and you know how they prioritize education. So I'm like, grandma, so it's for my school, it's for my class, and all this stuff. And she did it. She got mad at me, and she was all like, you lucky is for your school. You lucky you're going to get a grade for this. You better pass this class, right? Image. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to pass this class. But even the feel of like, there were only selected few projects from the group that was going to be showcased. So even though there could have been 15 students, they only chose 6 films to create. So everybody else who didn't get their stuff chosen, they have to find a group. Guess who came to my group? Nobody. So, which it was fine. It was fine. Again, the level of support, again, that I feel like I had, the privileges I felt like I was allotted, gave me that extra oomph. Now, it might have been different if I didn't get the support I needed, if I didn't, because I didn't know how to ask for it. But somehow, magically, there were certain people somehow that crossed my paths. Like, no, we got you, let's go, right? So to this day, the goal was, how can I be those mentors that I didn't know were going to be my mentors, and just continue to just provide positive support. Like, y'all could do it. Like, here's even networks that I have that I want to share, like even stuff like that. I mean, I don't have a lot of money, but I know I got a lot of networks. So I'm like, if that, like even that. So that's able to share. So just knowing, just the process of applying for a film school, they were asking me for a 30-page analysis research paper I did, and a film, a profile film, and letters of recommendations from people that have seen me hold a camera, things like that. Luckily I did. Like, there was a chance the privilege of going to a Pacific Islander Film Festival in 2004 in Palau, right? And that was all because I was considered a student, and because everybody in that department at UCLA found money to make sure that we all went and we were able to film. So if any of y'all need some of archival footage of the Pacific Arts Festival from way back when, UCLA got it, and they got the whole collection. And I'm just the one that did the filming in 2004. But it was just so fun. But all that stuff opened my eyes and just kept going. Like me wanting to be behind the camera, me wanting to just go film everything, me wanting to document stuff because I worry I wasn't going to be remembered. You know, all these different things definitely helped. But the program itself that I was in, they helped. They're like, we're not just trying to teach you to be a videographer, a cinematographer. We're trying to teach you how to be a director. So you have to know all these different things that compile together to kind of make things happen if you're going to be an independent filmmaker. And even being an independent filmmaker, people talk about like, well, it's not really independent. Like you work with people, like, you know, and so like we all try to shift the game. It's like, okay, well, if we could call ourselves something, maybe we could call ourselves our community filmmakers, where we're kind of in the community, putting in work, making sure that these stories are around to share and stuff like that. So, you know, I give a lot of props to folks moving in the ranks, because for me, I think the biggest thing I noticed just going through the journey is the harm that was done, right, within that industry of when other people tell our story and not us, right? There was harm done. So for me, I'm like, oh, we could change that. If somebody you know, basically pisses me off enough, watches me shift the game real quick. And there's something that I use a lot. I'm like, I get so frustrated, and it's to a point where it's like, enough is enough. I was like, you know what? Who told me that I couldn't do that? Who told me if somebody else is messing something out, here, let me shift the game. And I think that's been kind of like another shift of mindset for me, and one that I continue to push our next generation. Like they're all on this call. Like they're the emerging filmmakers doing stuff right now that I get to also help witness. So that's all I think. Hopefully I answered the questions.
Yeah, and if we could just go back to Lou's question, which was, as a filmmaker, what is the main thing you hope from audience to take from your films? And that's for all four of you, whoever wants to go first.
No, I love listening to them.
Jean, we're gonna pick on you.
Oh man, you don't want to go, Sima? I think okay. Like for the most part, like I was like brought up learning film and photography and storytelling from community members, and I literally like my boss. Like I was with this community or who's like family to me called Silicon Valley Debug, and they're just regular storytellers in the community who, you know, what Urs was saying, like nobody could tell your story except for you, you know. And so like it's still around, and I got to do amazing work, and they basically like raised me. I was kind of like figuring out my life, and I had just gotten out of jail, and my boss he hired me like straight out of jail, and he paid for my DOR fees and everything, and then they asked for the money back. And DOR is like the revenue folks. When you get out, people think jail's free, and you still got to pay all the fees. And so like I think back to just how like, you know, like even this conversation about school, like I think about how people who are just like me, who I see on the street, who like that they look like me, who I believe they're like the greatest filmmaker, the greatest photographer, like young someone, girls with black hoodies in the projects, you know, like to me, those are like, they probably have like the most powerful script in the world, you know, but nobody's gonna, you know, nobody, unless like they're told that, you know, like nobody's gonna carry that. So like, I think for me, like, even being in the school, everyone's like, oh, damn, like, that must mean something, you know. It's like this weird affirmation of like white institutions saying that, oh yeah, you're in this film school, that like all these filmmakers like like it wasn't this film school that affirmed, you know, storytelling for me. It was the community members that brought me up. And, you know, I traveled the country working on film with like the best people around me, like family. Like I've been to Russia. Um, imagine like a someone in Russia, like trying to teach Russians how to film. Like I was just tripped out by that, you know, like, but at the same time, I'm still like you know, I'm still a Samoan that comes from like a very like broken family, you know, like, so I think a lot of the storytelling is kind of like trying to piece together stories, you know, like of like my own family, like trying to figure that out. So I think for filmmaking, like everybody got different stories. And you know, my mom and my dad were the only ones out here, you know, like they were the only, a lot of people have brothers and sisters and aunties, and I'm grateful I got in-laws who are like the world to me in Frisco. But like, I think a lot about me watching films on families and how like family structures are, and like seeing different characters, and knowing like there's like ancestors within like the trans woman in the alleyway who like you know, like who you seen on the street who like might be high on drugs but could remember like a hula from her great grandmother while she's high. Like to me, like there's some kind of like, there's something that like all the drugs and all the struggles, like she could remember that like through all that, you know, like, so I think for storytelling, like there's like all these deeper stories that you could like bring spirit to that people don't necessarily, they won't necessarily see that unless like you really like dive deep into that. I think, I mean, like looking at Sima's, I'm going back to Sima's film, but ultimately like just seeing like how she used sound where the children don't speak, you know, like that's powerful. How to use silence, like people, like when I watched that, I was like, wow, that's powerful. How someone could use silence, how like people could use pauses, or you know, like there's certain things that could bring power through film. And I hope that like little, you know, when I make films or whenever, like I'm writing a film on boosters. Because I was a booster. A booster is somebody who, you know, I did all that with my cousins, you know, like I was just like a little hood girl, like with my cousins, you know, they're still hood girls and we're all growing up. but like, you know, where's the, like trying to find like the mana, the spirit that we all carry within those stories. Like, you know, that, you know, the people, the women who are locked up, like, you know, trying to figure out how to thread their story to them, you know, trying to find that mana through, you know, what we call America, colonization, capitalism, just all these things, you know, there's just like a way that we kind of got to find ourselves back. Cause I didn't grow up on the island. Like I didn't grow up with like, you know, like swaying island palm trees, you know, like my dad, you know, he was a planter. He was cheap, you know, he was looked at as cheap labor to grow palm trees because he knew how to grow that. So like, you know, where's the power and spirit in his story? And trying to connect that back to what that all means for our parents' migration story and all that. So I hope that kind of answered your question, Luke.
That's a great question. I guess my main thing and my hope for the audience to take away from the film is just seeing our people and hearing their stories in that particular medium of art, right? And I think that's something, you know, for me to kind of like push. Like I love when I start seeing things written, because, you know, funny story about me just going to film school, because I tell people all the time, I'm a visual learner, so I gotta do everything visual and, you know, and stuff like that. And then me thinking everything was going to be visual, but ends up that I got to write 30 plus page papers on proposals to advocate for funding for my films to get the resources and equipment it needs to come into fruition, I guess, right? And so somebody like me, I'm one of those who don't ask for, like, I don't ask a lot for people for money or anything like that. Like, I don't know why I don't, but I end up just trying to save up money to kind of get my own equipment, get my own stuff, so I can do this passion work that I enjoy. But always the hope, again, is just that the next generation of Pacific Islanders, especially the ones who grew up in the States, in the US, that they'll have something to look back to, like they'll have films to look back to. I look at people like our Japanese Americans who did documentaries about the internment camps. Like, they took it far back, but it's to hold on to that history before it becomes history, like in that nice little play on words. But that's kind of like the biggest thing. It's like, I don't want our stories to not move forward into our next generation. I think it's important, and I think it'll help us in everything, every industry or every organization that ends up coming up within our next generation. So really, it's really for the next generation to have things to go back to, where there's documentations, there's archives, there's all this stuff, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel in their generation.
Could I add to that question?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. Now, the question was, what do we want to say, or how an audience should feel?
Yeah.
How we want them to. I think for me is, I think whatever film, it's actually empathy, so that different cultures have an understanding of other cultures, because a lot of our issues, a lot of our conflicts just come from misunderstanding, I think, anyway, and not understanding the values that other cultures, or the way they see themselves and the way we view each other is so, can be really dangerous, because that's basically what starts wars half the time, because we misunderstand or don't understand each other, lack of tolerance. So a lot of the time, I'm just trying, even if it's, like automated, but I know that at its heart, fundamentally, all films are human stories, because we're all humans. So there's all those shared values. And so making automated is with confidence. Like for me, I'm like, yeah, I know this is going to go around the world. I know every country's going to understand it. What back then, what a white panel could not understand back then, because they were white way back then, is like, oh, she wants it in Samoan, no one else, will understand it. Oh, they're brown kids. Oh, no one knows who these people are. So one of those first battles is trying to do it with confidence, in terms of to say to people that think your work is not like, is that proposal writing you were talking about, Ursula, is so important. So what I'm doing at the moment is actually mentoring people, because what I realize, yeah, you can go pick up a camera, yeah, you can shoot this, yeah, you can do, but next stage up, you got to get the money to make the films, so just in terms of funding money, you got to remember white older men have been scoring our money to make their white perspective for decades. So we have a right to those funds. So I think it's just reminding, us Pacific filmmakers, is that for decades before that, it's been white men using that money. Not even women. You've got to remember, women have only just come into it, not even white women. So, and this is the thing, is for all women and other minority groups to know that you have a right to those funds, because white men have had it for a very long time. And part of the skills of being a filmmaker is actually learning how to write proposals, how to express your words on paper. And you have to, so it's not just writers that write. directors and producers also have to write, because we have to convey very strong opinions, and we've got to say it like, you know, we've got to knock that panel out and say, hey, my film, it needs to be seen around the world because I think it's really powerful and moving, and I want to blah, 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 blah. You know, that's the power. It's actually saying it too, you know, like we can't... So we have to learn to write. So my sister Makarita here too, she's a filmmaker as well. But, you know, and so we swap skills, and she's amazing writing. So throughout the years, so we've supported each other making films, our brother's music videos, and she also taught me how to write some proposals as well back in the day, even when I was doing theatre. So it's that support network, because writing is actually not a hard skill. I think it's just getting around using the right words, getting the right people there just to support you, even proofreading the right words to express your story and why your story deserves to be funded. So, and I think that is the next stage that filmmakers need to consider. So right now, there's so much talent out there in Aotearoa. We've got so much talent, but I'm having to now mentor them in terms of just writing their proposals to sell the story, because you've got to learn how to pitch it on paper for those panels to see. Because of course people forget, when you apply for funding, there's hundreds of applicants, okay? You're up against hundreds of applicants. Sometimes if you're going for certain funding, you're up against thousands. So, and when your films are going overseas, if you're going to the big A-list festivals, your film is up against thousands of entrances. And I always think, no, my film is good enough to get selected, to be the 1 in 50, to be out of the 1,000 selected in an A-list festival, say in Toronto, whatever. So it is the mentality of putting your story on paper, so that you have to, it's not only the audience you have to convince, we have to convince the funders to give us the money to make that film, to convince the audience. I think that's one of the biggest things that people overlook and probably need the most help in. Because you can be stylish, you can be flash with the camera, but if you want the long distance, long-term career as a filmmaker, is learning how to do all that work in the background. The whole lead up to making a film is massive. And hopefully you get fantastic producers to help you in that, but also producers that really believe with you. And they are, you know, you're like a husband and wife, it's your partner. I really love to treat my producers like, you know, I got your back and they got my back. So it is a partnership that you're sharing. You know, sometimes it's a year or two of a lead up just before you go to funding, because you've got to do all that paperwork, breakdowns to sell it.
Echo what Jean and Ursula and Sima said, and just add to that, like reciprocation. So hopefully what the viewer has watched, because that's what I learned about being Indigenous or being Tongan, is that to reciprocate that. So what you learn from that film, like not just that it'll sit with you, but to go and practice that. And I would also say, sorry, I'm still just thinking about what all these gems you're dropping, Sima. So, but I would say too that I would say a few things that I would want the viewer to reciprocate healing, you know. So those are just like maybe some audacious. I'd have the audacity to have that in my film. That's but for them to take that on. And what I mean by that is that living in Utah, so like when I go to a store, and maybe people have heard this a lot, but when I go to like if it's Walmart or just somewhere, and I'll see Pacific Islanders, because there's so many of Samoans and Tongans, Marshallese, Micronesians in Utah. And it's very saddening to me that when we see each other, you know, and I'll see someone like a direct reflection of me, like uh, whether they're you know, a woman, trans, or uh, a brother, you know. And so I'll see them, and then they'll see me. Sometimes they even have like Samoa or thong a t-shirt, but we see each other, and then we look away, you know. But I'm always like, hey, malolava, or like, hey, you know, malele, you know, and they're like, oh, OMG, like, you know. And unless it's the elders, right? And then, you know, like they'll, you know, will come, like they'll walk, like give a hug or something. But what I mean, it's like very saddening to me to see like our people around my age, a little bit older, and when we see each other, you know, like it must be a hard day, like, you know. And I don't want to, I'm not judging like what's going on, because we're all going through something. But what I mean, like when we see each other, we don't have that love. So what I mean by healing is like when you go home from that film or you're watching that Netflix, that you like, hey, I'm okay, you know. And it's going to take a lot of work, like a lot of healing, but it's like, you know, I'm okay to go for that job, to, you know what, Ursula's right, I'm going to go and write that application, you know, to have that, to remember what we are, and where we come from. And even the rest of us, you know, like not all of us have a great family like you, Sima, to, you know, be so supportive, you know. Like all of our families are so different, you know. And I do have a great family as well, but I mean, all of us come from different backgrounds. But even if you don't, like to have that little chunk in you that like, yeah, I you know, I'm gonna write my story, you know. I'm gonna, like the next time, like little things, you know. It's not like to go change the world, but just a little thing, like, man, when you see me, like be like, hey, what's up, moms, you know. And like, hey, when you're beautiful, I'm beautiful, you know, let's celebrate that, you know. And also that's always just a part of my because part of me is that also just our quest and our journey towards freedom, you know. um Sorry, just that I was thinking about this when Sima was saying that. But like what I want to, the type of films that I want to write, to do are like what you were saying, Gene. But it's like, man, like have yate, you know, that's yarding. A lot of Tongans do yarding, you know, like cut trees, and see that in ourselves and be like, man, I'm proud, because we're so bombarded and like dropped with like, oh, you know, it has to be Gucci, it has to be Prada, it has to be that. And like that's all lives. Like we are so rich, you know, like when our parents go like to, like Jean's dad goes to the Oakland Temple and plants the palm trees, the trees that are still here to today, you know. That's what we call in Koloa. That's like our finest mats. That's our finest ngatu, you know. And like that's what I want to be like, hey, we're okay, but also we're the fucking bomb, you know. That's what I want to get from them. Sorry kids if you're listening. um that's how we do, you know. And I want them to be like, I'm the protagonist. Like I was in, I think, Pennsylvania one time to visit my little sister who was going to art school out there. And someone, we were going on an escalator somewhere, and I think they were saying like, oh, you guys are like, y'all are like Gracie, you know, like Grace, you know. And we didn't get it, but that person was saying like, we're like Grace from Once Were Warriors, you know. And so that's the impact. Like he was black, he was a brother, but like for him to see that in us, you know, like that really, today that still hits me, you know. But for us to see that in each other, you know. Thank you.
Go ahead.
When I was younger, traveling with film festivals for Automaiti and I think Still Life, I would get mistaken for Gracie. So that's when I was, you know, in my younger days. So they'd say, oh, you look like you and Once Were Warriors. Oh my gosh. So they'd mistake me for Gracie. So, but then the older I got, it was then, oh, you're Beth. So then they started kind of thinking that I was the mother. As the older I got, that I look more like Rena Owen. Yeah, so they really can't tell the difference between us. So it's like, so they was mistake me for Rena as well.
Yeah, and it looks like our hour and a half together has gone by really fast. I think I speak for everyone when we say we could probably listen to you for another 6 hours, Sima. But you know, just to honor everyone's time, in closing, if you guys have any last words you would like to share to aspiring filmmakers here on the chat, and just what you would like to see for the future of Pacific film.
I just want to say, oh my gosh, I cannot believe you guys are out there. It's strange because we have our own little planet here in Aotearoa, and we have been doing our thing for a very long time. And I'm very close to my Māori filmmakers. And actually, for a long time, there were no islanders. So it's actually the Māori older filmmakers, a lot of them, and even the white filmmakers who actually took me under their wing, you know, whether I liked it or not, they like, Sima. So I have been extremely fortunate that a lot of the old school filmmakers like Merata Mita, yeah, oh my gosh, they all seem to just wrap their arms around me very early on. I think too, you know, a bit of naughtiness is really good. Just to help you drive through and do your thing. And there's a point, yeah, we kind of do things for our community, but then at the same time, you know, we can really piss people off with what we make. Sometimes we just have to have just a don't give a stuff attitude, because actually not everyone is going to love your work. Not everyone's going to agree with your work. Not everyone is going to, you know, bash it either. But you will always get haters, just like anything, just like social media. So be confident and just know who you are, what you want to say. You just can't please everyone. And that's the thing with, I think, putting our art out there, whether you're an actor, whether you're writing a book, making a film, we can't please everyone. We've got our own experience, unique, our own viewpoint, and it's, you know, it's who we are. So loving listening to all of you filmmakers. I'm so excited, and just seeing all the different faces too who are listening in. Oh, love it.
Really quick, just know I love to support. Like, I'm definitely one. I have 4 different emails for whatever reason, but I only check 2 of them daily. And so if you don't find me, like, hit me up on the social media. Like, my goal, it was definitely one of my goals, was just to be that person to help support everyone that's trying to fulfill a particular goal. And if it's providing a particular network, if it's a space, a connection, anything like that. For me, because Nani's on this call, Nani Wilson's on this call, it don't matter what we're doing in community, somehow the conversation around, so when are you going to pick up that camera? Of course, it's shared with also her son, the golden child, but definitely always getting those reminders as well, because there's times we get kind of lost and distracted with like what's going on and what's happening, but knowing that there's folks that continuously remind us of, like, we know what your gift is, we need you to use it. We've seen how powerful it was before, like you got to kind of stick with it. And I think that's helpful, coming from, you know, triple OGs. Like, I do listen, and my hope is that I can continue. What's magical is every space I've magically been in, I was able to utilize these skills. You know, I've even gone to a point where when I got my degree and I moved back, everybody's like, "Oh, can you film my wedding? Can you do the football highlights? Can you, you know, all this list?" And I was like, "But wait, do people get paid for this?" So yeah, so just knowing that you have me as a resource to help support in the work, and anything that I could do to help provide that support, the ears that's needed, because it's frustrating and challenging, but we know that the end result is worth it.
Sorry, y'all. Yeah, everything that Ursula and Sima and I was saying. But man, I'm like super in a deep tunnel vision right now. I'm like writing, and so like I hope like writing is like it's a discipline that you just gotta practice. And I turn my phone off and I like don't check my emails. I like go on social media for like 10 minutes and get the hell off, you know. But I would say like I hope like I could work on a set with like Pasifika women, queer, trans folks, like a whole asset of us, you know, like from like crew to everyone, you know, like cinematographer, DP, producer. And I hella feel what Sima was saying about like getting the bureaucracy part down. Cause you know, like I would say like for me, like I have expectations of myself. I'm kind of like a perfectionist sometimes, but it helps me to be better disciplined. And so like I hope everybody in here is down to, you know, pull out their acting skills, because I would love to see our folks' faces and people like really believing that they could like have like like not, you know, not monolithic characters that they could play on screen, you know, like that women are not like some side character that just helps like the protagonist dude, you know. I just hope that, you know, that when it comes, like we just have a whole ecosystem of Pasifika films and stories, and they're all different. And women, queer people, trans folks could see themselves as a leaders, kind of guiding as a guiding force. And I hope Sima, if I ever like get the bureaucracy down and get some money, if you're ever down to direct with Arms and Urs on something, you know, like it would be so dope to just, you know, have all of you on something, you know. I don't know if you're want to take a break from teaching.
No, right now there's a Pacific Island company. They've been making stuff for web. Now they've moved up to TV. They've also been funded for horrors. I'm also mentoring, because they have a lot of new directors now, mentoring some of them into moving up to some longer formats. So it actually gets screened, but also has the ability to go to film festivals. I also have my name with another Samoan girl who's, but more as a producer role, to support her team of producers to get a feature length up. I've also got my name, you know, helping other projects out. I mean, I can't spread myself too thin because I've got my own projects to do, but just know there are actually things happening here, and I'm really thankful I'm not the only one, that there are actually Lisa Tauma's Coconut TV, that's, you know, got a lot of crew who are learning, as upskilling as well. You know, people at the Film Commission, Tusi Tamasese, all that lot, that we're growing strong as a team, but also, you know, Nathaniel Lee's, being an old school actor, just having him, you know, as our kaumatua, he wouldn't like that. But I love him, you know. Yeah. This is the thing, we gotta keep our sense of humor too, you know, and laugh our heads off. You know, I'm always taking the piss out of crew. I'm always laughing at the Balangis, and you know, because we're islanders, it's like we can, and we are funny, and that's what keeps us driving. But that's also what everyone loves about us islanders, is that we are actually team people, and filmmaking is actually a team sport, and we are really great organizers. I mean, you know, we know how to do a fa'ala velave, so of course we know how to make a film. We know how to be, yeah, sport players, and that's the same with making films, but we know how to perform, so we make great actors as well as directors. So, you know, we're just fabulous.
Thank you. Yes, Sima, I would totally agree. Thank you, Jean. So I just want to put this out here. Jean will be going to the Oscars. So you heard it here. All right. So don't miss there, y'all. Like that's when the COVID will be free so that we can all go there, you know.
I'll be being security for arms.
I am so well I'll be like the food, you know, the crafts, you know, I'll be in charge of like the, you know, that part, you know, Gene, I hope you have a good budget, you know. But I just want to say like it is such an honor to be here with like my favorite filmmakers, storytellers, and Lauren, you are an amazing writer and storyteller. So I look forward to your film. Thank you, Ursula and Sima. Um, and I just wanted to pay homage or how they just respect and honor to you know to Merita Mita and to one of Samoan woman that as a little when I was a little kid who had a big head, Ruth Tuitele Leapanga, wherever you are, thanks for man coming in when I came in from Samoa. You took this girl off the airplane and was like, this is what you need to do, you know, in Honolulu. So wherever you are, man, just so much love to you. And because you know when we see us, I want to just give thanks to. I see you, Tommy. Man, your hair looks beautiful. Bava, man, shout out to New York City. Nani, Timena, Lou, Selu, Galani, Alexis, Naki, Carol, Reina, love you, Reina, and my girl Teresa and Tone. Sorry, I can't see all the names. Gina, and Darren, and just all our people that you know just shout out just love to like those who are going out through COVID and those stories, you know, like those are the kind of movies I want to hear. Like what are we going through, you know what I mean? The movies that we're making ourselves every day, you know. And just want to say thank you for taking the time and this busy Saturday to come and listen to us. And you are the protagonist of your film, and hopefully I can be a part of it. Call me anytime. Love you all. Ofalahiatu and Lofatu.
Thank you, everyone. Please, if you want to stay updated for future chats like this, just go ahead and drop your email in the chat below. Other than that, Happy New Year. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you in the future.
Yes, fat now.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Peace.
Yeah, got to
Thank-
go.
Yeah. Outside now, let's see what.
Where did these people come from? That's so cool.
Bye.
Fatima.